WMOM 838. Good morning, West Michigan. Chris here with you. And Erin Doan from State Farm Insurance also with us. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Chris.
And I love the look. You got the goatee going on there.
I feel it. Yeah, got it going.
You have that new shirt from the 20-year anniversary that's coming up in. I know this is radio for a lot of those out there, but Erin Doan sporting that shirt, and it looks good. Hopefully, I can get one by the time
before it's all over and done. Yes, we'll get you one.
Thank you. I appreciate it. 20 years in business. We're going to be talking to you about that here in the next couple of minutes, but we're also going to be talking about small business insurance. Crucially important because you were talking some major numbers off the air that we're going to share with the audience coming up. And again, I'll give you my assessment of why, but you probably have some other angles too in regards to this boom in small business insurance being taken out. So car show coming up, 20-year anniversary, and small business insurance, all part of this segment that you can listen to right here on your radio, your smart devices like your Amazon Alexa, your Google Home, streaming at WMOM.FM. We're also streaming both on Facebook right now and our YouTube channel at 1027 WMOM. Lots of opportunity for you to connect with us. Let's start with the small business insurance side of things. Some numbers you were sharing is some booming in regards to people taking out small business insurance.
Yeah, the U.S. actually in 2020 created 4.4 million new businesses, small businesses in the United States. In January of 2021 alone, 500,000 new businesses across the country. And State Farm's a big part of small business insurance. That's our biggest category in that format.
Right. And it's a good thing, though, because when you think about it, as a small business owner, you have so much on your plate that insurance might be, well, hey, is it as important? But it crucially is when it comes to employees, when it comes to theft, and when it comes to things that break down. We don't have this unlimited tree of money outside of our businesses. So small business insurance is crucially important.
Yeah, it's a component where, of all the things you're looking at and creating your new business plan for what you're going to do, or the people that have started new businesses, that is an element on a checklist, typically, is insurance. And what we encourage people to do is not wait for the last moment, not have that as part of their budget, and really wrestle with it early on as they're kind of really considering their business and what is insurance and how much is it going to be. The more risky an insurance is, a business can be in terms of potential losses, those insurances can be more expensive and sometimes ineligible. What that means is you can't get insurance for certain companies if it's higher risk than others. So, it's one of those things when you're looking at your plan and yes, you want to make sure you know how much it's going to cost and what coverages you need.
And I found that out even with the radio station, is that there are some insurance companies that just don't carry radio insurance. And it was very interesting to find that out. But there is, I don't know if radio is high risk. I mean, we're just talking to a microphone most of the days. That's not all we do. But it is very interesting. And that small business owner, they need to have that conversation early on to be able to say, hey, what insurance company do we need to talk to? And with State Farm, I would assume, because of it being a very large company, obviously one of the major insurance companies in the U.S. is that you have a lot of options for those small businesses, no matter what they're going into.
Yeah, there's many businesses that are eligible for sure with State Farm. State Farm looks at, again, that risk component. And so for companies, we're in the process of, we'll get an inquiry, somebody will call in or, ask us, hey, we're looking at insurance and we're looking at starting this business. And that's perfect timing. And so we'll say, well, tell us more about what you hope to do and plan to do. And there are elements that, they're definitely, we're going to do this right out of the gate. And they may say, well, some of these other attributes we want to do in the future, that could be a year, 2, 3 years down the road, and we want to go in this direction. And interesting enough is sometimes certain elements of what they want to do can have higher risk and cost more in insurance. And so it's nice to give them the full package up front, even when they're doing their planning, where it could be a year or 2 or 3 years out before they start adding those other elements. And so we find business insurance, as much as almost any insurance, is it needs to be up to date and updated as your business changes, and you add elements to your business of certain types of way to make more money that you're looking at. That needs to be on your policy before you go ahead down that path.
Can I ask you one of my? I tend to throw out some crazy questions.
Sure, it's great.
Time to time. Okay,
but you're thinking a lot like the listener, for sure.
Yeah. Well, in this particular case, I'm just curious, the curiosity more than anything. Out of all these years, 20 years now. And dealing with small businesses, what is that one business that has come in, and you don't have to identify the name of the business,
sure,
but the category that is like, oh my gosh, how are we going to insure this company? I mean, there has to have been an idea that has come through the door from a business, from an entrepreneur. That you just scratching your head, but you might have accomplished too. Has there been a scenario?
It's typically something where they want to work out of their garage, and they want to have customers come to their garage, and they want to fabricate something that in their home property that involves metal flying and just creating some kind of cool even artistic things that are just a lot more risk, especially with customers coming and going on the home.
Yes.
That is an element I definitely want to talk about today, Chris, is that certain lower risk home-based businesses where customers aren't coming and going, and you don't have more than $5,000 of inventory or desks and computers and things of that nature, that you can actually add that to your homeowner's policy. But
really? Okay.
Yeah, but once you get above that, once you get to where customers are coming and going, and you've got more than $5,000 of inventory and fixtures and furniture, you definitely need to look at business insurance as a separate policy.
Okay. All right. Good to know there. And we are learning as we go through this segment. If you're just joining us, Erin Doan from Erin Doan State Farm Insurance with us this morning. We posted on our Facebook page above the video here. We're streaming live on Mom FM Facebook and on YouTube. That we're going to give you some tips this morning in regards to small business insurance. And the first one we want to talk about is develop a plan. Why is that so important?
Yeah, I think it gives you some direction in terms of what you're actually specifically going to do, because if something happens, the way we look at it in insurance is you want that to be covered, which sounds obvious. But at the same time, if the insurance agency or company doesn't know you're doing that, you could actually have a loss. You could have something happen, and it's just simply not covered because it never was brought up, never had a conversation about it, and you weren't able, between you and the agent you're working with, made sure it was on the policy and covered, and that you saw it on the policy for sure.
All right, and with most solid small business plans, there is that insurance area. That is, okay, what do we need to do, and what types of insurance do we need to employ for our business to be stable? Make it official. That is one of the tips that comes along, and they say every locality has different regulations regarding starting and operating a business. I would assume that does come into play when it comes to talking about insurance and making sure that that business is legal and zoned in the right area and such, right?
Yeah, I think that's a component that we like to, when I get involved, in the small business area. And interesting enough is every one of my staff has had or has been involved in their own family a small business where they've been active either as adult children or their couple, their husband or wife has a small business. But zoning is extremely important. But then also, like, what are they planning to do as it relates to that business? And how about the name? Just creating a name can create some situations where if you're not 100% sure that it's not trademarked or copywritten, or even for this matter, sometimes people buy LLCs and they're not actively using them. So an LLC is a form of a corporation that you file with the state, and for us, state of Michigan. So you actually do the paperwork, you file, you get your name, and they give you that name, and you have ownership of that name. So that's just one of the steps in a small business that we'll actually have conversations about with people that have nothing to do specifically with insurance and getting a quote and making sure they're eligible and getting the right coverage for them. So we try to go above and beyond just the insurance part and having the conversation.
Well, and part of that is that you're dealing with a lot of other small businesses. So having that conversation or that networking is crucially important, and that brings us to that next tip, which is finding connections. And when you're being able to sit down with you and your team at Erin Doan State Farm Insurance and say, I have this worry about my business, or this is what I've been thinking about. I would assume, based on obviously being here in Mason County, being able to talk and handle a lot of insurance policies, you're able to connect those new entrepreneurs and business owners to others that can really, sometimes it's a good sit down, maybe it's just a quick email, but networking is crucially important.
Yeah, I think it's important that, that I spend time getting to know those network partners for these particular situations. So if you think about when you're starting a new business, well, what are the elements that I need? And I think if you're in business and you have been in business, it just becomes like, well, matter of fact. But if it's kind of new to you, you're looking at part-time, maybe going full-time sometime with a new business, I'll have partners, legal attorneys, that I can refer to you. And I'd give you 2 or 3 attorneys, in each county, whether that's Manistee or Lake or Mason, or Oceana County. I'm going to give you those attorneys. I'm also going to give you bankers to give a call if you're looking at getting a loan to start your small business. And they'll help you with the small business administration loans or whatever fits your needs, trying to find those people that I know. If I'm giving you their name, I'm putting my name on the line as well. And that same thing with accounting and taxes, getting you, a couple different accountants to talk to and interview and make sure you feel comfortable. So then we, myself and Matt and Heather at my office, we're trying to sit down with you and understand more clearly what you're trying to do, what partners you already have in these spaces and that you don't. And so we're going to, encourage you. There's some certain things I can bring up to you as your insurance professional, but we have to be very careful about giving you tax advice because I'm not a CPA. We have to be very careful about giving you legal advice because I'm not an attorney. So these are specific licensed things, like we are licensed with the state of Michigan to do the things we do.
Okay, very good point there. Yeah. We're talking with Erin Doan from Erin Doan State Farm Insurance. Let's take, as we go, let's take this in 2 angles, if you don't mind. The first would be that person, and we've highlighted a little bit of it, that wants to start their small business from home. And then the other side of it, that buying a business or renting and such. What are those main differences when it comes to insurance? And you had mentioned the $5,000. If you're doing $5,000 or more worth of business, you got to put that on a separate policy. But what are those major differences when you're talking to somebody, small business at home versus brick and mortar renting or leasing or buying?
Well, the biggest thing really can be is what specifically are you doing? Because a lot of people say, well, this building is beautiful. It's everything's been replaced and it's been renovated. It's got new electric and heating and cooling. And so really we need to know what you're doing first, no matter where you go, what building it is. Okay. Then secondly, are you going to rent or lease, or are you going to buy the building or buy that section, let's say, of a multi, unit building? Sometimes those are condominiumized. So there's a lot of different ways creatively that you can get into a space that you need, but there's 2 main, are you renting, if you will, like we are as residents or, residentially? Think of that similarly. Are you going to rent or lease? More often in business, we call it leasing. And then, are you going to buy this building? And there's insurances that are interesting. You're going to buy the building. Many people lease it back to their business. Now, we're going to get complicated here a little bit, but a lot of times you can actually have 2 entities when you're buying a building. One that owns the building and another entity who runs the business inside of that. So that's where it gets a little complicated. But for those of you that are listening, that are in the middle of this or considering to grow your business, here's one of those components. You can, if you can financially swing it, buy the building and lease it, have your business lease it from the entity that owns the building. It's a great way to go.
All right. And those are the kind of points that you want to be able to have a conversation with those that come through the door at Erin Doan State Farm Insurance. I would assume it is a sometimes a tangled web of what direction to go through and what to go in. And that is where you step in and you have that conversation with them.
And I think, I was going to say, just on that component, sorry to interrupt, Chris, but, lately it's been really enjoyable for, if you will, in a good way, the millennials that are really developing in their late 20s, 30s, and 40s. Now, what I'm watching, and they're looking for that assistance on how to take it to that next level. So I'm really enjoying mentoring a lot of these younger business owners, and giving some things to consider. And they're actually bringing business plans and ideas to me that I may not even be able to insure. But I take that as a huge compliment to have an opportunity just to sit down with them as another business owner who's been down this path, just to really dive into it deep so that I can help them avoid some pitfalls that unfortunately that I went through when I was in my 30s and 40s.
Yeah, that's good. And thanks for doing that because there is a lot of growth happening out there. There's a lot of independent businesses. There's a lot of digital businesses popping up, obviously, with the internet. And so we want to make sure that you're ahead of it. Stop into Erin Doan State Farm Insurance and talk to them about small business insurance. And we just kind of scratched the surface this morning in regards to this. But I think somebody could. You want to be able to have that checklist and say, am I covered if this happens or this happens or this happens? But what if, what are things that you didn't think happened? That you have to have insurance for. So let's have that conversation, and we encourage you to do that. Erin, before you go, we want to talk about your 20 years in business here. You're putting on a car show when?
So it's in June 25th on a Sunday. It's from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And it's at the 10 spot on Ludington Avenue. Many people are familiar with where the food trucks are. That's exactly where we're going to be. We're going to have the car show in that parking lot, and banners and food, and we're going to give away food and prizes. I'm glad that you're going to be a part of it, Chris.
Absolutely.
We're excited to have you there.
Thanks.
So very much looking forward to it. So it's going to be a great day and event. We're looking for anyone that owns a classic or antique car to be a part of our show. So give my office a call, Erin Doan State Farm in Ludington. We would love to take that call. You can reach us at 231-757-3115 and let Heather know that you'd like to be a part of the show with us. We'd love to have you, and we've got some, we're working on getting trophies and awards for those that participate, and some gifts for the people that will bring their car for that Sunday and enjoy that afternoon with us.
All right, sounds good. We'll continue to keep that word spread throughout the West Michigan area. Do you have a classic car?
I don't, unless you consider a 2001 Jeep Wrangler a classic. It's not quite there.
No, okay.
But I'll tell you, a lot of people do like to see it, and they're like, wait, that's an older Wrangler. And I'm like, oh, it's a 2001. Like, wow. And I'm like, yeah, well, to be honest, I found it in Florida. Yeah. So it didn't have any rust, and it's not been driven in the winter. So,
it might be.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting closer, but there's obviously a whole cult thing with the whole Jeep, and that's all new to us. But yeah, that's the closest I can get to a classic car.
Hey, there you go. Nothing wrong with that. Erin Doan State Farm Insurance, from Erin Doan State Farm Insurance, right there on US 10 between Ludington and Scottville, north side of the road. You want to check it out and make sure that you ask those questions that we talked about today. Bring up that conversation with them. I would assume that your entire team is ready in full force to help somebody if they're wanting to start their own small business.
Absolutely. Phone lines are open.
All right. Sounds good. There you go. Erin, thanks for coming in this morning.
Thanks, Chris.
You got it. It is 8:57 here on 102.7. It's Mom FM.